Sorry for the long hiatus, but welcome to another episode of Media Fame TV, where we cover real and unique stories behind the entertainment industry. I am your lovely host, Malaysian Quita, Jada Pinkett Smith, Laina Dawes, Betty Davis, Alexis Brown. These are all women who rock. And the interesting thing about all of them is that they're women of color. Now, being a rock DJ and a metal DJ, and just being a fan of rock and hardcore and punk music, being a person of color, especially being a woman of color in those particular genres of music, can be a difficult challenge. I had the pleasure and the privilege to interview Laina Dawes. Now, for people who don't know who she is the author of the well-respected and well-acclaimed book called What Are You Doing Here?, which is kind of like candid, interpersonal viewpoint of what it means to be a woman in the rock and metal and punk and hardcore genres. She's been featured on NPR as well as she has written for publications such as Hellbound and Blog Her. Without further ado, it is my honor and privilege to present to you the interview that I conducted with Laina Dawes. What's up?
Not much. How are you?
I am doing really good. I have to tell you right off the bat, you're like my new hero.
Oh,
Like,
thank you.
yeah, you're like so awesome. Here's the funny thing before we begin. A little background on myself. I had gotten your book from the library at my college, and I did some like research because I was trying to look for like African American like female rock personalities,
Hmm.
and I was like I could not find anything, and I was like, wait a minute, this is really crazy. So I found your book, What Are You Doing Here? And at first I didn't think it was real. I was like, wait, there are black women like myself who listen to rock and heavy metal and hardcore and all that stuff. Like, this is surreal. So I went to my reference librarian at my college, and he's like, no, this is seriously a book. And I was like, okay, when can I get it? So I got it and I started reading it, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is everything that I have gone through.
Hmm.
And it sucks to the fact that it's still a reality for us as people of color.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's start at your beginnings. Now, in the book, what are you doing here? You had mentioned that you were adopted. Do you still keep in touch with your actual birth parents?
No, I don't have any contact with them at all. Never have. Never have at all.
And why do you feel have you just decided that these are my parents and you never want to get in touch with them, or have they tried to get in touch with you?
No, they never have. I think it's just a personal decision on my part. It's just I think it was just a bit of fear of adding more drama to my life.
Yeah.
Really wanting the drama. I know that my adoptive parents would love it if I contacted them, but there was no effort on their part. So I just dropped it, and so at this point of my life, it's not that important to me. So no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I had wondered that like through reading your book. But let's get to the good stuff, because once again, it shouldn't matter like what I was listening to your NPR interview that you did about your book and your life and the experience. Why do you feel that it is such a huge issue for people of color to be in this industry?
I think it's a big issue because it is an issue. I mean, I've been a journalist. Well, I've been a metal fan all my life. I've been a metal journalist for a long time, and from my personal experiences and also talking to the women that I did for this book, it can be, in some ways, it's a hindrance being a woman and being Black in this scene, in terms of how you're treated at shows. If you are a journalist and photographer and you want to get involved in the industry in any way, it can be seen as a hindrance. I think the most important thing is talking to women musicians. That has been a hindrance in terms of how to market them. You know, obviously, the record label can only, or record labels or industry people can only really react to consumers and what the consumer demand is. And so there's still an issue in the outside society in terms of who we perceive as being a metal, hardcore, punk musician and who we do not. So it is a hindrance in terms of doing what you want to do with your life because you're passionate about it. But on the other hand, the music is also quite liberating for the women who are involved in the scenes. The energy, the aggression, it lets them get out a lot of kind of their inner junk that we all carry, just like the white guys have always done in terms of metal, in a really healthy, positive way. One thing that I wanted to really research with this book, and one of the things that came to mind when I started, researching and talking about it and really thinking about writing this book, was how it helped me as a kid and how I felt very alone. I had a lot of issues with racism where I grew up. I felt like nobody understood me, and I found that listening to the music I did at that time really helped me feel better about myself, and it helped me kind of exert my aggressions and frustrations in a healthy way, in terms of not being able to talk to people about how I felt. I felt that the singers of the band or the music was a good soundtrack in terms of the frustration that I was feeling in my life. So luckily for me, I was able to meet a ton of people who felt the same way. This music saved my life. This music helped me get that aggression out in a positive way. Because as Black women in this society, we are told that our opinions don't count. Nobody wants to hear our voice. People, we're easily dismissed. And that kind of attitude creates a lot of internal damage within us. So I was looking at heavy metal in particular as a form in which I could get that frustration out in a healthy way without having to harm myself, whether drugs, alcohol, or being sexually promiscuous. Just trying to find ways where I could make myself feel powerful in a world that didn't give me that power that I needed for myself.
Yeah, and for me, I can relate the same way, because like I feel, being a personality and a DJ that plays both, like the urban and then playing the metal and rock stuff as well. Hence why people came up with that term. They like to call me like a soulful metalhead, because I try to really balance between those two worlds of what I like. Like many Black, people, you start off in the urban community, and then you translate into, if you become more intellectual and you start to take music as something that's just beyond the lyrics, you start to see other genres, and then you start to, like how, with your book, you're able to kind of connect that to a more social, cultural approach. What really surprised me the most was you were able to get these Black women and other people in the few people in the industry to talk. How does that process work? Like, did you just go up to them and be like, oh, by the way, I'm writing this book, about Black women's experiences in the industry. Would you like to get involved, or was there more resistance?
Yeah, it wasn't easy. I mean, especially when I first started out doing this, it was not easy at all. After a while, and because I was was always a writer in the music scene, I was able to meet people who knew people who said, "Hey, I know that like for a really good example is Erica Kristen and Karma Elise, who are they run a website in Chicago called 14g.net, and they're big on the metal scene there, and they knew a lot of people, and so I randomly met the brother of the bassist for Macedon in a bar. And
The
said,
perfect place,
yeah,
right?
and I said I had been in Atlanta actually interviewing a couple of people. So he said, I know these black girls and they're really into metal and I think they have their own website in Chicago. So I was like, okay, there's some people out there. And then I met somebody else a couple of months later who knew the same women. So they put me in contact with them. And so, it was really word of mouth. There was a couple of people that I met just like at festivals. You walk up to them, tell them what you're doing. But I mean, it was I mean, in some ways, I was lucky to get the incredible people that I did to contribute to this book. On the other hand, it was very, very difficult because no one really had a lot of faith in the project. And so, I contacted, emailed a lot of industry, like well-known musicians, black women musicians who are usually doing backup for a myriad of bands right now, and they didn't want to talk to me, because nobody was like, well, who are you? And this doesn't make any sense, and this is silly. So, but overall, I have to say that I was really lucky. But it was a lot of hustling. It was a lot of emails. I have very good friends who really helped me out in terms of trying to find people. So really, the connections that I had within the industry really, really helped.
Yeah, because I was just astonished because when I heard the title of the book, I was about to say, I was like, "Oh, she must have gone through like 7 layers of hell to you know to be able to get these interviews and as candid as the women were throughout the book. It really opened up my eyes because, for many black people out there, and I mean, all over the YouTube community, I see a lot of black men addressing, the issue. They'll either say, oh, I don't care, or, this is the music that I like and this is what, how I feel about it. But for black women, I think also too, and I'm sure you can agree with me on this, is it's easier to play the stereotype than to break out and be an individual in a community that often tells black women to, like you were mentioning earlier, to kind of like suppress yourself.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, it really, really is a whole different beast. And I mean, some people have said, well, how come you didn't put any black guys in there? And I'm like, because I'm a black woman and I want to talk about my experiences. And I also really want to make this connection with other black women in the scene. Obviously, metal in particular is a very male dominated industry. So there are black dudes who are musicians, who are industry workers, and I have heard from some of them since the book has come out, and they've told me their stories. But in terms of sexuality, representation, and the particular issues that black women have in North American society, I really felt it was important to really kind of explore those areas because white men will still might have a problem with a black guy in the scene based on race. But I think that gender also plays such a huge issue. And, because metal is so hyper masculine, I really feel that it can be really beneficial for black women to express themselves within that arena. So that's really why I focused on women.
Yeah, I'm so glad because I have done so much research looking. If I found women in heavy metal, it would once again be referred to either white women or or Latinas. But I really want to kind of go a little bit deeper into finding more about what's currently going on in the scene and like what are some resources to really tap into it? Because it was extremely hard for me, like, to find your book. I had to do a search for like black women in heavy metal, and then it came up.
Right. It is not easy still. I mean, because you're finding that some of the black alternative websites they don't want to touch metal. They don't want to touch any kind of extreme music in general. So you're finding a lot of media attention on, let's say, alternative hip hop or soul, like Janelle Monáe, Erica Badu type of thing. But you're not really finding a lot on black women metal musicians and fans. There are a lot out there, though. I mean, I'm shocked at. It's been a year since I started. Like, the book cover came out and we started the press. It's been a year now, and it's amazing how many people have contacted me in terms of saying, yeah, I have a band and I'm a singer, or I'm doing this and I'm doing that. So there are people out there. It's just a matter of getting them into one space. And I don't even know, I feel a little even resistant about doing that, because the women that I know who are musicians, there's Militia Vox. She's in New York. She's doing a lot of stuff. She is fronting a Judas Priest tribute band called Judas Priestess. There's Diamond Rowe from Tedderark. It's a metal band from Atlanta. There's a couple of other women who are doing either punk or metal bands who are in the New York scene. They're seen as musicians first. They don't necessarily need to put their blackness on their sleeve. And so it's important for me to kind of promote these women, but I'm promoting them because they're really good. And I think that there is this general resistance about saying, yes, I need to find this community, but also kind of questioning why we need to lump everybody into one chunk. So that's always been kind of my thing, because obviously I've done it for this book because I felt it was important. But there are women out there, and they're just really doing their own thing, building up their own fan base, creating their own communities. But those communities are really based on their talent and the work that they're doing. I think that what they want to say is that my gender and my ethnicity comes second to my talent. I do feel, though, however, when you're talking about writers or people who want to be promoters or bookers or people who are like me, are in the background, who I think that in terms of building a community of people who want to write for a living, of people who want to be photographers, that is more of an important community to build, because I think that's where we can work together and we can help support each other in terms of helping each other get work or even building up your own thing. So there's a guy in New York, Patrick Chappelle. He's doing Kingdoms X Entertainment, and he is kind of working on his thing in terms of building up this community of industry people and musicians, but really, building a community around that. But as of now, it is very, very hard. I'm trying to use the What Are You Doing Here Facebook page to kind of encourage people to, like the page and just stay in touch. And I try and post as many things as I find. And my publishers, Bazillion Points, have been awesome in terms of if they find a video or they find any newsy items, they post it on the Facebook page too. So it's kind of a passive aggressive way of letting people know what else is happening out there.
Yeah, I definitely will be adding that because for me, it's like I want to start, especially for Media Fame TV, to be able to really show the diversity within music, because for me that's always been a problem. It's kind of like you're either one or the other. You're either Beyonce or you're Alexis Brown.
Yeah.
From Straight Line Stitch. And if like the classic example, which you have mentioned in your book too, and I love Skin. I was very impressed with the introduction, because like anybody can relate to that. I mean, you're a front woman, in a genre that's often once again tied to men, and then to have your your CDs during the Riot Girl movement, which was pretty much all throughout the, you know, 1990s, to have your CD. And this is supposed to be a movement that is supposed to be progressive for women, to have your CD placed in the R&B section. You
Yeah.
know, really, that's what really kind of compelled me to, and you know, and the more I started reading on it, and the scarcity, like you had mentioned before, of people in the industry, that's what really pushed me to really start playing these bands and really start my own blog, because I got sick of you know, you had mentioned that too, you know, you would go in for things, or my favorite story that you did in that NPR interview was when you said that you had a friend that was white, and you know, you told him, you know, that you were black, and then he hung up on you.
Right, right. Yeah.
So things have not, I mean, things are moving in the right direction with your book, and I hope you write a sequel. FYI suggestion. Because I really, I love people like you, because you're the people that raise hell, and you know, and you do it in an intellectual way that is so provoking and groundbreaking. And now, you know, women like Skin and Alexis Brown, and even, you know, Jada Pinkett Smith with Wicked Wisdom, now these women are starting to get recognized for what they do.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I've had people say to me, "Oh my God, your book! Oh, it must have been hard to write it because you talk so." I said, actually, I didn't think twice. I mean, there's a lot of other crap I could have put in there. There's a lot of other stories I could have put in there.
Please write a sequel.
I mean, it was really, I mean, it is, I think the thing is that, you know, back to Skin, I mean, she was one of the women that really inspired me to write this book. I was a huge Skunk and Nancy fan back in the grunge era, which I mean, the grunge era was my heyday. But one of the things that I really struggled with was, it was an era, as you mentioned, where women musicians were kind of, they were in the forefront. They were in the spotlight. People were looking at, you know, geez, Tribe 8 and Bikini Kill, and
Yeah.
even women who were in, I'm just thinking Kim Gordon from Sonic Youth. And I mean, this was the era where a lot of women their musicianship was being showcased. Black women at that time, nobody, I mean, I found out later there was Joyce Kennedy from Mother's Finest. There was Sandra St. Victor, you know, from the Family Stand, Skin from Skunk and Nancy. There was Lynn from Tribe 8. There was so many black women who are also in the scene that were completely ignored, not only by mainstream media, but also by, in quote unquote, the Riot Girl scene. You know, they didn't, I mean, all women, when you thought women back then, you thought white women.
Right.
Women of color were completely, it wasn't even that we were ignored. We just weren't even thought of. So there's got to be the support in some ways. And that's one thing about the Riot Girl scene that really bothered me, was that I felt like I was invisible, that my life and my life experiences, I did not relate to anybody. I didn't relate to what anybody was saying. But I knew that there was a lot of other black girls who also couldn't relate. So, you know, you want to do something. You want to get your voice out there, because we have to, as black women, we're always told that, again, our voices are not relevant. And I feel very strongly in terms of people in the music industry that our voices are relevant, and we can reach so many girls who are sitting at home thinking that there's nothing out there that they can relate to. You know, that's how I felt when I was a teenager. I just don't want any young woman in this day and age to ever feel like that.
Right. And that's, I mean, that's, you know, for me, that's what kind of, you know, once again, motivated me into, you know, being a part of this. So, okay, let's say, you know, I am a college student, and this is something that I'm, you know, interested in, or I'm just someone who really wants to kind of study and do more research in regards to black women in this industry of rock and metal and hardcore and punk, what are some directions or advice that you would give to people who want to get involved with this type of media? Because I mean, we all know this media is dangerous. I mean, especially metal community is still predominantly white. Still, you know, the racism is very heavy. So what type of guidance would you give to women and even men out there who want to pursue this?
I'd say don't be afraid. I think that you really have to work on, I mean, the most important thing is your craft. You have to be a good writer. You have to believe that you're a good writer. Or if you feel, you know, like what I did was when I first started writing about metal in particular, I gave myself 3 years to write for free. So I wrote for a number of websites and all of that, and, you know, websites that couldn't pay me. And I was always studying, regardless of ethnicity, I was always studying the readings and the writings of music journalists that I really admired. Basically, people will give you a break if you can prove yourself as being a capable writer, photographer, this, that, whatever. So in that sense, I think that in metal and from, I guess the scenes and the people that I personally know and that I work within, I have to honestly say that these men and women are more concerned about the quality and the content of your writing and what you bring to the table as a artist versus the color of your skin and your gender. I really do believe that in some ways, people who are really into metal in particular, and I'd say even the same thing for punk, the punk scene too, they're not going to care less about your ethnicity or your gender. They want to know if you can deliver, and that's the main thing. So I wouldn't. I mean, it's. I went into it because I was I was reading metal magazines from the time I was 11 or 12, and this is something I've always wanted to do. So I just did it. But I also have to admit to you that I had a few years where I really wanted to write about metal, and I went and wrote about hip hop and R&B instead because I did think, oh, nobody's going to let me write because I'm a black girl. Well, I was able to meet someone who liked my writing and gave me a break, and I just went from there. So you have to get over that, and I really do believe that there's enough. I mean, the journalism industry right now is pretty dire, but there's tons of websites and there's tons of opportunities for upcoming, new writers or people who are interested in doing it to get involved in it. So don't let your gender or your race hinder you. You do have to be careful and don't be naive and don't trust everyone. But on the other hand, I'd also have to say that you also have to put who you are first and your talents and your skills and your confidence first outside, and you can't be burdened by, oh, there is a lot of racism or whatever. There is, but there's still a window of opportunity for you. So I think that's the main thing. I'd say go to a lot of shows, depending on what city you live in. Go to a lot of shows and network and meet people. And that is a really good way of building a name for yourself. And even if you need to volunteer by, working at the door at a show, that's the best way to do it. Like really get out there, network, but really, I wouldn't let that doubt hinder you. There's more good people than bad.
Right. And that's what that's the mantra that I always keep in my head. So what are some upcoming things you want people to be aware about and how to get in touch with you? And I'm really hoping you write a sequel to this book, or make an anthology or something just awesome. Because I love what you do. It is so unique, and now I can finally say, especially for all the, the black girls, black women in this community, that there's someone who's actually caring and wanting to be proactive. And even myself, like from reading your book, I'm like, oh, that's it. I'm being proactive, and I'm, not being afraid of this racism anymore in this industry.
Yeah, well, I mean, one thing I'll say before the contact is that I think I find that the people that are really, really passionate about the music and the scene, who are really, really passionate, they are the ones that you don't have to worry about. I think that, one things I like about metal is that there's a lot of, I mean, there's some incredibly intelligent people who are involved as writers and, bookers and promoters and all of that. Like people who are really passionate about the culture are usually the ones that don't have the chip on their shoulder in terms of needing to call you something at it, or they're not going to go out of their way to try and ostracize you. Those are, and for me personally, that's what I've really appreciated is the amount of like-minded people I've met within the scene. And and there's people from all over the gamut, in terms of ethnicity and gender and even sexual preference. What really matters is the music, and what really matters is the passion that you have for it. So it's usually the people who are, there's stories in the book in terms of going to a show and somebody calling you something, or women I interviewed who got beaten up at a show. The people who, those are just such a small minority of people, and those are people that if you're looking into getting involved in the industry, there's not going to be very many people like that at all. They don't care enough. They care about getting high, they care about getting drunk, and they care about making other people feel inferior to them because they have their own issues to deal with. So I really promote getting involved in the scene. And if you're in the right scene, if you meet the right people, you should have no problems at all. In terms of the future, I think the best thing right now is like I'll be doing some readings. I'll be going to a couple of schools in the fall to do some lectures and stuff. But I would just really, if people want to go on to What Are You Doing Here, find the book page on Facebook. That's the best way to keep in touch. I also have What Are You Doing Here book.com, which is kind of has a warehouse of all the interviews and reviews and all the upcoming events that are coming up. I hope to, in the future, I don't know how this is going to go, but I'd like to do some work with the Black Rock Coalition. They're based out of New York and LA. I'd like to do some work with them in terms of putting on a show, kind of like a black rock metal show, just to showcase some of the musicians that are coming out there. So really trying to make this as interactive and really try and cultivate more of an audience of people who are just really interested in the scene. So right now, if you're in New York, go to Afropunk. I don't know what their lineup is like this year, but there might be, some bands playing there. But otherwise, really go to the Facebook page and we'll connect on there.
I'm just, for me, it's what you do. Once again, I know I'm sounding very cliche today, but no, what you really have done is you have, I would say, to the same degree that, Rosa Parks sat on that bus and changed everything about segregation. You have done that for women of color in this industry, because at first, like many women, oh, can I do this? Can I have this, the ruthless aggression, and can I project that? And now, with your book, there are so many, like, I read through so many different metal forums and rock forums out there, and it's so interesting because I like people like you. You like to stir things up. I like to stir things up. But we stir things up in a way that is intellectual and can be transcribed and understood. So, I mean, you're definitely a role model in my book. And I really am looking forward to seeing, how things develop. And when that second sequel or whatever else comes out, please let me know, because I will promote the hell out of that.
Thank you very much. I honestly didn't go into it to get that type of reactions. Thank you very much. I just look at a lot of stuff as it being common sense in terms of right. No one should ever think that they can't do anything. And it really, hurts me to know, and to talk. I've talked to so many people since the book has come out where they're like, "Oh, I never thought I could do this. I never thought I," and I'm like, well, it's, of course you can do it. It's not going to be easy. You're not going to get a welcome mat, but you should always do what you want to do and never let anybody hinder you from doing it.
Right.
Right. And that's what I mean, to me, that's common sense to me. And I mean, everyone has their days where it is hard. It is a difficult road, but there's, there's just no reason why you should ever feel that you can't do something. So, I mean, out of anything in the book, I hope that young women, young Black women really get that message, whether it's just going to a show, whether, there's I mean, I've talked to women who were afraid to go to a concert because they were afraid they were going to get, hung up by a tree or something.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a lot of fear that's out there, and there's a lot of resistance, and there is a lot of resistance that we do need to address. Not everything is rosy, but never let anyone tell you that you can't do what you want to do.
That is so right. And thank you so much, Lana, for being on the show today. And I definitely will be keeping in touch with you, and because I just want to learn more about this industry and learn more, from you, because I feel that I would gain so much being around you, and you have that experience, and you just know what's up.
Well, yeah, I mean, definitely, please do keep in touch. And anyone that's interested, I mean, I don't know. I mean, if I can't help you, I'll find somebody that can.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, definitely. And, and thank you so much for this opportunity. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you. So you have enjoy your July 4th.
Oh, well, I'm in Canada, so ours was actually on Monday, but
You are
you
correct.
have a great July 4th.
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, take care.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
I would like to thank once again Laina Dawes for the amazing interview. I was so psyched and stoked to talk to her because she is just an amazing person. So for more information about Laina Dawes and her work, you can check out her Twitter at twitter.com/LanaD. And she also has a very interesting website called writingisfighting.com. Before I end today's episode, I have a couple updates for you. First off, Media Fame TV is going to be aired once a week. It's going to be uploaded on YouTube on Fridays. Now, my personal blog, which you can check out at youtube.com/BelasianQuita, is going to be updated the next day on Saturday. This is due to the fact that my schedule has gotten more crazy. I'm also a DJ now, and it takes up a lot of time, and also it takes a lot of time to put these episodes together that I know that you enjoy. Definitely gotta give a shout out to all of our amazing followers on Twitter, which you can also check out at twitter.com/MediaFameTV. I am grateful and I feel blessed for each and every one of you that has stuck around, and I am sorry for the long hiatus. The reason why that occurred was due to the fact that I actually have been moving, and I finally moved and I'm settled in and everything like that. So Media Fame TV is back. It's going to be aired once a week because of my hectic schedule now. But I promise you, I'm going to be continuing to bring very unique stories and real stories that are non-gossip related about the entertainment industry. I am your host again, Belasian Quita, and remember, it is our world and our rules.
What it is.